Let me tell you something. When people realize they can't manipulate you, they get desperate. They start reaching for something dirtier, not because you did them wrong, but because you didn't let them own you. See, when you draw a line, when you set a boundary, you're not just protecting your peace, you're challenging their illusion of power. Now watch how quick that smile fades. Watch how fast the praise turns to silence. Suddenly you're acting different. Suddenly you're too good for them. No, you're just done being used. And here comes the trick. The real trick. They'll twist the truth. They'll talk behind closed doors. They'll make you the villain in a story you didn't even write. But here's what you need to understand. That's not your war to fight. That's noise. And the world is full of noise trying to distract the discipline. Because when you stop reacting, they stop winning. Stay in control of your focus. Guard your energy. You weren't built to be everyone's puppet. You were built with a purpose, a mission, a fire. When people realize they can't manipulate you, they begin to test your boundaries in subtle and not so subtle ways. At first, it may seem like small things, passive comments, side glances, little actions that make you question yourself, but it's not random. It's calculated. Because when someone loses control over you, they don't just walk away. They try to push the fence and see if it will still bend. They start testing how far they can go without your permission. You have to understand something important here. Manipulation only works when someone believes they can influence your decisions, your thoughts, or your sense of self-worth. But once you start showing them that their opinion doesn't define your direction, they feel powerless. And people who crave power don't like feeling powerless. So they test your boundaries not to understand you, but to find cracks in your foundation. They might try to guilt trip you. Oh, you don't have time for me anymore? Or gaslight you? Why are you overreacting? I was just joking. Maybe they bring up your past, remind you of mistakes you made, try to shrink you back down to a version of yourself that was easier for them to manage. That's not accountability, that's control dressed up as concern. But here's the key. When you've done the inner work, when you know who you are and what you stand for, you start to recognize these tactics for what they are. You start seeing the game without playing it. That's when things shift. That's when you stop feeling guilty for saying no. You stop apologizing for your peace, and you start protecting your mind the way you protect your home. You don't just let anybody walk in and rearrange the furniture. You see, strong boundaries don't mean you're shutting people out. They mean you finally learn how to let the right ones in. People who respect your no. People who don't test your loyalty just to feed their own insecurity. The people who get angry when you set boundaries. Those are the people who benefited when you had none. Think about that. You'll start to notice that when you stop being so easy to reach, they start reaching in the wrong ways. They'll push harder. They'll play victim. They'll say things like you've changed, but change is inevitable when growth is involved. And your evolution will always feel like betrayal to those who loved your stagnation. So now the choice is yours. Do you let them keep testing your boundaries until they find a way back in? Or do you hold the line and keep walking forward, even when it's uncomfortable, even when you feel alone? Growth is lonely. Strength is often misunderstood, but that doesn't mean you're wrong for standing firm. That means you're doing something right. Because people who are used to manipulating others don't give up control easily. They'll try charm, they'll try anger, they'll try guilt, and when none of that works, they'll test you again and again. But your peace, it's not up for negotiation. Your value doesn't decrease because someone couldn't convince you to shrink. You don't owe access to people who only knock on your door when they want to rearrange your priorities. So don't flinch. Don't fold. You fold. And don't explain your boundaries to those who only want to break them. They'll test you because you're no longer controllable. And that's exactly the person you're meant to be. Unshakable, unapologetic, free. Silence, it's not just the absence of words, it's a tactic, a weapon. And one of the most subtle, most manipulative moves someone can make when they realize they can't control you anymore. When you stop responding the way they want, when you stop being predictable, silence becomes their next move. Not because they're at peace, but because they want to disturb yours. They want you to sit with uncertainty. They want you to question your worth, replay conversations, doubt your stance. Because if they can't manipulate your actions, they'll try to manipulate your emotions. It starts with the cold shoulder, the unanswered calls, the sudden distance. At first, you might think they're just busy. You tell yourself maybe they're going through something. But deep down, this is different. This isn't just space. This is punishment. It's strategic. It's meant to provoke a reaction. They want you to reach out first. They want you to feel anxious, to ask yourself if you did something wrong. And the moment you chase, the moment you bend just a little to get their attention again, they win. That even without saying a word, they can still control the atmosphere around you. That's not healthy communication. That's emotional manipulation. And it's even more dangerous because it's so quiet. There's no yelling, no arguing, no obvious confrontation. It looks like peace on the surface, but inside it's chaos. It keeps you up at night. It has you analyzing texts, rereading messages, second-guessing your boundaries. Silence like that doesn't create healing. It creates confusion. And confusion in the hands of someone who craves control is a very intentional tool. But here's the truth. Your peace cannot depend on someone else's voice. Your confidence can't be tied to someone else's response time. The moment you let silence speak louder than your own self-worth, you've already given away too much power. Because real connection doesn't play games. Real love, real friendship, real respect, they don't punish you with silence. They talk. They explain. They meet you in the middle. Manipulators, on the other hand, don't want resolution. They want reaction. They want you to break your own boundaries just to restore the connection. And that's the test. Will you compromise your peace just to get a response? Or will you sit in the silence and stay strong? It's not easy. Silence makes people uncomfortable. We're wired to seek clarity. But not all silence needs to be filled. Sometimes the loudest answer is the one that doesn't come. And that's not rejection. That's redirection. You learn who's really for you when you stop entertaining manipulation. When your boundaries are met with silence, that tells you everything you need to know. That tells you the relationship was conditional. That tells you the connection wasn't based on respect, but on control. You've got to get to a place where their silence no longer triggers your insecurity, where it no longer shakes your sense of self. Because once you do, the power shifts. Once you can say, you're silent and I'm still at peace, you've already won. You've already broken the pattern. They expected you to chase. They expected you to shrink. They expected you to be so desperate for validation that you'd abandon your standards, but not anymore. You've grown now. You see the game and you're not playing. So let them be silent. Let them withdraw. That's their choice. Yours is to stay centered, to stay grounded, to stay free. Because you don't need noise to know your worth, and you don't need a reply to know you're right for standing firm. The silence they thought would break you, it only built you stronger. When someone can no longer manipulate you, they don't just walk away with grace. No, they get strategic. And one of the dirtiest tricks they'll use is twisting the narrative. They flip the script in a way that turns your strength into selfishness, your confidence into arrogance, your truth into cruelty. You become the problem, not because you've done anything wrong, but because you've finally done something right. You've stopped playing their game. At first, they might start with subtle comments to mutual friends. Things like, they've really changed, or they're acting different lately. But what they're really doing is planting seeds of doubt, suspicion, and confusion. They're not interested in setting the record straight. They're interested in rewriting the story to cast themselves as the misunderstood hero and you as the villain who suddenly lost compassion. Why? Because if they can't control you anymore, they'll try to control how others see you. They'll take private conversations out of context. They'll exaggerate your flaws and minimize your boundaries. And worst of all, they'll play on people's emotions. They'll tell half-truths, spin innocent moments into malicious ones, and reshape your decisions as evidence that you become selfish or cold. And unless someone knows you deeply, unless someone truly understands your heart, they might just believe it. That's the painful part. You may lose relationships not because of who you are, but because of how someone else portrayed you when they lost access to you. But let's be clear about something. People who twist narratives are not looking for justice. They're looking for justification. Justification for why they lost control. Justification for why they're no longer in your life. And most importantly, justification to themselves that you were the problem all along. It's a defense mechanism, a dirty one, but it's also a sign that your boundaries worked, that your growth triggered them, that your refusal to be manipulated hit a nerve they weren't ready to expose. You have to learn to be okay with being misunderstood. It's hard, especially when you're someone who moves with honesty and good intentions. It hurts when people don't see your side. It stings when lies travel faster than the truth. Because no matter how much they twist the truth, the people who really know your character, they'll see through it. They'll feel the difference between a performance and authenticity. There's also something else that happens when you're no longer easy to manipulate. Your independence gets demonized. Me. Your choices get labeled as selfish, your voice gets described as too aggressive, because the person who used to benefit from your silence can't handle your strength. They weren't ready for your growth. They weren't ready for your boundaries. They weren't ready to face the fact that you no longer needed their approval to feel whole. Let them talk. Let them spin. Let them play their little roles in the drama they've created. Don't chase down every lie. Don't defend yourself in every room you're not even in. You don't need to. Because what you built in silence, what you stood for when no one was watching, what you walked away from with dignity, that speaks louder than anything they could ever say. You don't rise by correcting every rumor. You rise by continuing to move in purpose, in peace, in truth. That's the revenge. That's the power. That's the victory. Because in the end, the truth always comes out. The smoke clears. And when it does, they'll be left standing in the ruins of their own false narrative. You'll be too far ahead to even hear the noise. Jealousy doesn't always show up in the way you expect. It doesn't always come loud, obvious, or dripping with envy. No, sometimes it hides itself behind something that looks like advice. It sounds like concern. It wears the mask of constructive criticism. But if you listen closely, if you really pay attention, you'll hear it for what it is. Jealousy disguised as critique is one of the most dangerous tricks people use when they can't celebrate your growth. See, when you're struggling, people are comfortable. You're relatable. You're one of us. But the moment you start rising, when your mindset starts shifting, your goals start aligning, and your habits begin to change, you become a mirror that reflects what others are not doing. And not everyone wants to face that. So rather than clap for you, they correct you. Rather than be inspired, they get irritated. And instead of saying, "I'm proud of you," they'll say, "Oh, don't get ahead of yourself." You start hearing little digs disguised as jokes. "Oh, look at you, Mr. Ma'am. You think you're better than everyone now. Or worse, don't forget where you came from." They'll question your decisions, criticize your ambition, and point out your flaws, not because they care, but because your elevation challenges their comfort zone. And here's the twist. Some of these voices come from people close to you. Friends, family, people you thought were rooting for you. That's what makes it sting so much. You're not hearing it from strangers. You're hearing it from people who once said they believed in you. But belief has limits when it's conditional. Many are fine with you doing well, just not better than them. It takes emotional maturity to recognize this without becoming bitter. You have to learn how to separate real feedback from disguised jealousy. Real feedback empowers. It helps you grow. It's delivered with love, clarity, and respect. But jealousy, when masked as critique, leaves you doubting yourself. It makes you question your progress, second-guess your decisions, and sometimes even shrink yourself just to avoid making others uncomfortable. You must resist that. You didn't do the work you did, overcome what you overcame, and fight through what you fought through just to tone it down for someone else's insecurity. Your light doesn't need to dim so others can feel brighter. Shine anyway. Grow anyway. Speak anyway. The truth is, your elevation will always reveal people's true intentions. Some were only clapping when you were down because your struggle made them feel secure. But your progress, that's a threat. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing what they won't. You're proving that change is possible, that discipline works, that boundaries are necessary, and that rattles people who've built comfort around excuses. So when the critique comes, pause before you absorb it. Ask yourself, is this helping me? Is it rooted in love, or is it rooted in comparison? Is it said to build me or to humble me out of fear? You're not obligated to shrink for anyone. You're not arrogant for evolving. And you're not selfish for choosing to prioritize your growth. There's a difference between arrogance and awareness. Arrogance says, "I'm better than you." Awareness says, "I've got work to do and I'm doing it." And that work won't always be applauded. In fact, sometimes it will be attacked, but don't let that stop you. Because you weren't called to be average. You weren't meant to play small. And anyone who truly loves you will never make you feel guilty for rising. Keep going. Let them talk. Let them criticize. Because deep down they know the truth. What you're doing scares them, and that's not your problem. That's their mirror. When they can no longer manipulate you, one of the most deceptive tricks they'll use is playing the victim. It's not because they've suddenly become innocent. It's because painting themselves as the wounded party helps them shift the blame away from their own actions and onto yours. It's a strategy, a performance, and if you're not careful, it can make you question yourself, your choices, even your reality. It starts subtly. Maybe they say things like, "I was just trying to help," or "You hurt me by walking away." They'll frame your boundaries as betrayal. Your silence becomes cruelty. Your refusal to be controlled is now labeled as abandonment. And they say it in a tone that pulls at your empathy because they know you care. They're counting on it. They want your compassion to override your common sense. You have to recognize what's happening here. This is not accountability. This is not healing. This is a tactic to regain control, not over the situation, but over your emotions. Because if they can get you to feel guilty, they can get you to lower your guard. And once your guard is down, they're back in your space, back in your decisions, back in your mind, and the cycle begins again. Playing the victim allows them to avoid responsibility. It lets them rewrite the narrative, not just to others, but to themselves. They don't want to confront the truth, that you stepped away because the dynamic was toxic, because the connection lacked respect, or because they crossed lines they had no business crossing. That's too much self-reflection. So instead, they paint a picture where you're the cold, heartless one who left them behind. And the more people they can convince, the more power they feel they've reclaimed. But here's the most dangerous part. If you're someone with a big heart, someone who genuinely wants peace, that performance works. It makes you second-guess your strength. It makes you wonder, did I handle that the wrong way? You start replaying everything in your head, wondering if you were too harsh, too distant, too fast in creating distance. And that's exactly what they want. Because the moment you start questioning yourself, you're more likely to reach back out, apologize, reconnect, reopen a door that was closed for a reason. You've got to understand something. Protecting your peace isn't a crime. Saying no isn't cruelty. Walking away from manipulation isn't abandonment. And someone else's hurt feelings are not always your responsibility, especially when those feelings are rooted in their inability to control you. You have every right to set boundaries without explanation. You have every right to cut ties that drain your energy. And you have every right to do it without being made to feel like the villain in someone else's story. Because sometimes the person who cries the loudest isn't the one who's been hurt, they're the one who's been exposed. Don't fall for the theatrics. Don't mistake manipulation for vulnerability. There's a difference between someone owning their pain and someone weaponizing it. One wants to heal, the other wants to guilt trip. And your job is to know which one you're dealing with. Stand firm in your truth, even if they try to flip the script. You know why you made the decisions you did. You know what it took to finally put yourself first. Let that be enough. Because the people who truly love you won't need to be manipulated into sympathy. And the people who don't, they were never really for you anyway. Let them play the victim if they need to. You're not responsible for their storyline. You're responsible for your sanity. You're not here to explain, defend, or apologize for doing what was necessary to grow. Keep moving. Let peace be your proof. When manipulation no longer works, and they can't twist your emotions, your thoughts, or your actions, their next move is often an insidious one. They isolate you. Quietly. Strategic. Not always by removing themselves, but by attempting to remove you from the people, spaces, and support systems that give you strength. Because control doesn't always happen in confrontation. Sometimes it happens through disconnection. They'll start by casting doubt. They might say things like, that friend doesn't really care about you, or you're always listening to them instead of thinking for yourself. It's subtle at first. They'll question your circle, criticize the people who uplift you. Slowly but surely, they want you to start questioning the intentions of those who actually have your best interests at heart. Why? Because if they can't control you directly, they'll try to remove anyone who helps you remain strong, grounded, and clear. This is not a random act. It's calculated. If they can get you alone, mentally, emotionally, socially, they can start to rewrite your truth. Because isolation makes it easier to manipulate someone's reality. Without outside perspectives, without support, you're more vulnerable to doubt. And when doubt creeps in, control becomes possible again. That's the trick. It's not about love. It's not about concern. It's about power. Always has been. They'll pretend it's protection. I just want what's best for you, they'll say. But their version of a best is whatever keeps you accessible and them unchallenged. Because people who thrive on control hate the idea of losing influence. And when your environment supports your growth, their grip loosens. So they try to poison the environment. They talk behind your back. They create misunderstandings. They plant seeds of suspicion. And they watch you slowly drift from the people who were once your safety net. This tactic works best when you don't realize it's happening. When the isolation is framed as a just spending more time together or a cutting off toxic energy. When in reality, the only toxic presence is the one trying to rearrange your world. And sometimes it's not just one person. It could be a group, a circle, even a culture, anything that wants to limit your access to truth, to empowerment, to yourself. The scariest part, you don't even feel alone at first. You might still be surrounded by people, but it's a curated group, chosen by them, approved by them, designed to echo what they believe, not what you need. It's not community. It's a controlled echo chamber. And the longer you stay in it, the harder it becomes to hear your own voice. And that's why awareness is your first defense. You need to start asking, are the people around me encouraging my independence, or are they only comfortable when I depend on them? Are they celebrating my growth, or are they trying to contain it? Because healthy relationships don't isolate. They amplify. They push you toward your best. They connect you, not cut you off. They give you room to expand, not shrink. And when someone is threatened by that expansion, they'll try to make your world smaller. Don't let them. If someone's love requires you to disconnect from yourself or the people who support your healing, that's not love. That's ownership disguised as care. And you don't belong to anyone. You are not here to be managed. You are not here to play small so someone else can feel big. Reclaim your space. Rebuild your connections. Reach out to the people you once pulled away from. It's never too late to return to truth. Because no matter how far they tried to isolate you, your strength has never left you. It's been waiting right beneath the surface for the moment you decide, I won't be kept small for anyone. And that decision, that's your freedom. When they realize they can't manipulate you, when your mind becomes your own and your decisions aren't swayed by guilt, fear, or pressure, there's one last trick many will reach for, the smear campaign. They don't just leave your life, they try to destroy your name on the way out. Why? Because control isn't just about directing your actions, it's about controlling how others perceive you. And if they can't have power over your reality, they'll try to have power over your reputation. It doesn't start with a full-blown attack. It begins quietly with whispers, passive-aggressive comments, misleading stories, carefully selected half-truths that make you look unstable, selfish, cold, or even cruel. They don't need to lie outright. They just need to twist the truth enough that it serves their version of events, and they'll deliver it with such conviction that it almost sounds believable. To the people who weren't there, who didn't see what really happened, their performance seems real, emotional, honest, but it's none of those things. It's manipulation dressed as victimhood. The goal isn't just to make you look bad. It's to isolate you further. To make sure others question your character so that if you ever speak your truth, it's already been discredited. It's about planting seeds before you even walk into the room. That way, if you defend yourself, you're just being defensive. If you set boundaries, you're being difficult. If you stay silent, they'll speak louder in your absence. And it's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle. Whoa, it's the social media post aimed at you without using your name. It's the group chat you're no longer in. The party you weren't invited to. The change in how people greet you like they know something you don't. You feel it before you even hear it. That quiet shift in energy that tells you your name has been in rooms your feet haven't touched, that's the game. They want you to lose your footing. They want you to break down, lash out, or beg for clarity. Because the moment you do, they get to say, see, look how unstable they are. It's a trap, a setup. And the only way to win is not to play, not to lower yourself to their level, not to chase rumors or try to fix lies that were designed to hurt you. Because the truth is, your character will outlast any campaign. You don't have to defend yourself in every room when your life is proof of who you are. The people who matter, the ones rooted in discernment, love, and truth, will see through the smokescreen. Maybe not right away. Maybe not loud and clear. But eventually, truth rises, always. The hardest part? Keeping your integrity when you have every reason to lose it. When lies are flying and your name is being dragged through dirt you never walked in, your ego will scream, a clap back. Your pride will beg for revenge, but your power is in your composure. Because the moment you act out of character, you reinforce the narrative they built around you. So let them talk. Let them post. Let them twist and spin. Let them play the victim in the story they created to hide the fact that you saw through their mask. You don't owe anyone an explanation for reclaiming your peace. You don't need to justify your growth to people who are only loyal to your lower version. Let them remember you how they need to. Just make sure you keep walking in truth, because time is the loudest voice. And peace is the best rebuttal. Keep showing up in your truth. Keep building your life. And watch how the lies fall apart on their own without you having to lift a single finger. They can smear your name, but they can't touch your purpose. And that's what really scares them.